Hi, welcome back to Z-fari, the video novel. Today we're going to read the last part of chapter 12. Just a little bit of a snippet. Won't take you long. We're just going to go back down into the lab and see what Dr. MacDougall is up to. So if you're ready, we'll start. Here we go. Dr. MacDougall had to move out of his office because of the noise of the construction of the cell. He took his laptop, on which he had downloaded almost 4 gigs of peer-reviewed published research, and moved upstairs to a vacant office on the 3rd floor of the great stone building. It was quiet, and the window in the office looked out over the wall and into Z-land. Dr. MacDougall had been studying zombies for 3 years, but his had been objective, scientific research. When he looked out the window at the empty expanse of abandoned buildings, overgrown lots, and rusting cars and trucks, he realized that this was the first time he had ever seen Z-land. The wall had provided a convenient and unconscious physical demarcation between the land of the living and the enclave of the undead. Dr. MacDougall stood at the window and stared out. He forgot about his research. He forgot about the experiments he was conducting. He forgot about the files on his laptop and how they were leading him to an unexpected understanding of the tragedy that had infested Kansas. MacDougall stood at the window, transfixed by the empty land that stretched out in front of him. The sun moved across the sky. Hours passed. And as the sun reached the horizon and began to drop behind, MacDougall found that he couldn't take his eyes away from the land that knew the secret it held from him. The sky darkened. Stars began to sparkle in the darkness. All MacDougall had were questions. Dr. MacDougall was transfixed with the view out over the wall, in part because he was suddenly aware that, until this moment, he had only considered the zombies to be a constant in his experiment. Somehow the zombie caused zombification. Zombies and the people who were transformed into the living dead by some still abstruse mechanism had been simply objects of laboratory study for MacDougall until he actually looked out over the wall. The other side of the wall seemed a place of emptiness and peace. And then MacDougall remembered that it was teeming with the undead who only offered agony and strife to any person that they met. They were indifferent, merciless, relentless enemies of the people they once were, who would make like themselves, without emotion and without thought, simply because that is what they did. In the basement lab, Willie was healing, more slowly than MacDougall had allowed for in his schedule, and while Dr. MacDougall stood at the window searching for answers, the zombie did nothing, except that whenever a human, Dr. MacDougall, Allison, a construction worker, a trooper, a custodian, or any living man or woman walked by, the zombie's eyes would lock on that person and follow him or her as long as it could. Sometimes the zombie murmured a low, rumbling growl deep in its throat. Allison enjoyed directing the construction of the cell. She adjusted MacDougall's plans to make the data collection more complete, more efficient, and more easily shared with other researchers in order to continue the research and verify the study's reliability, reproducibility, and validity. She spent a lot of time during the construction trying to find a way to make MacDougall name her second author on his research. That would go a long way towards securing a fellowship to fund her doctorate. By overseeing the construction of the cell, the most important part of Phase 4, she would be indispensable to MacDougall. He would have to do the work with her instead of using her as his gopher.